Hello, hockey fans. Austin here, and welcome to today's video where I will be discussing the winners and the losers of NHL Free Agent Frenzy. And of course, it really was frenetic. It was an unbelievable day in Free Agent Frenzy yesterday. We had 185 signings, 392 contract years given out, $361 million up against the salary cap, and $1.2 billion in salary was handed out just yesterday. And we still have a long summer to go. There's still some players that have not been signed, some more contracts that will be signed throughout the course of the offseason. And of course, just like in any sport, there are winners and there are losers, and then there are truly those WTF moments. So if you end up liking today's video, make sure you hit like. If you end up really liking it, make sure to subscribe. I will be providing tons of hockey content throughout the offseason and heading into next year. So as I mentioned, we're talking about the winners, the losers, and then the truly WTF moments. Let's start with the winners of Free Agent Frenzy. The first team that is the winner, Edmonton Oilers. They signed Jeff Skinner to a one-year, $3 million contract. Terrific value, kind of a one-year show-me deal for Jeff Skinner. I think if you slot him next to Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid, he's going to be putting up another 30-goal season, maybe even 40 once again in his career. I know he's 32. He's not exactly very flight of foot, but you know what? Stuart Skinner. That's the Oilers goaltender. Jeff Skinner, he is an attacking player. He attacks off the rush. He's pure skill, pure offense, and that's something that Edmonton needs more of on their wings, so I really like the Jeff Skinner signing. Next up, they also signed Viktor Arvidsson, right wing, 2 years, $4 million per. Now, Arvidsson, he had some back problems last season. He didn't play very many games. He only played 18 games. However, he looked pretty decent in the playoffs for LA. I know they only played 5 games against the Oilers. I think Arvidsson, he's going to look great, like I said, alongside either Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. I love how much the Oilers have been able to improve their top 6 with these wingers that they've signed, and $4 million a year for Viktor Arvidsson. He's someone that can easily put up 30 goals in a season, so you know what? That's really good value as well. And then the next player, Adam Henrique. Again, this is a really good value contract. I'm sure Adam Henrique probably had more money on the table from other teams, but a 2-year, $3 million per. That's a terrific signing. Now, the Oilers, they are in a bit of a salary cap crunch right now. They are going to have to figure out what to do because they're over $2 million over the cap. So whether they move out in Evander Kane, whether they trade a Cody Ceci, a Brett Kulak, I'm not quite sure. Their defensive group is kind of crowded right now. Their forward group's kind of crowded. Something has to give. I imagine Jeff Jackson or the next general manager will be trying to make some trades here to free up cap space to make them cap compliant heading into the preseason. Now, the other winner of the day, of course, was the Nashville Predators. They had a terrific day. Steven Stamkos got completely lowballed by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Absolutely insulting by the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know what the heck they're doing, but Stamkos, he was given 4 years, $8 million per season. Obviously, that's worth it. He's probably still got a decent amount left in his tank for at least the next 2 years, maybe even 3. That 4th year, we're not sure because he is getting up in age. However, I think in the short term, Nashville, they are really going for it, and I love to see that. I love when these smaller markets, these smaller but very passionate markets are just going for it. They're going all in. Last year, the Nashville Predators, they were just a feel-good story, just doing what they can. They made the playoffs. And, you know, they gave Vancouver a run for their money in that first round. They ended up losing in 6 games. And now, but Barry Trotz, he's like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's try and win a Stanley Cup. He signed Steven Stamkos. He also signed Jonathan Marchessault, 5 years, $5.5 million per season. Terrific value contract for Jonathan Marchessault. I think that's a really good fit as well for the Nashville Predators. And then he goes out and signs Brady Shea, one of the best defensemen on the market, in my opinion. Brady Shea, 7 years, $7 million per. Of course, towards the latter half of that contract, it's not going to age super well, but in the short term, that first 3, 4, 5 years of the deal, that's looking really good. The Nashville Predators, they are completely bolstered up front. They've bolstered their defensive group. They're terrific and set in net with UC Saros recently re-signing there. And then they also have Yaroslav Askarov as their, up-and-coming star. So you know what? The Nashville Predators, they're looking great. As an Oilers fan, I'm really happy that Nashville's in the Central Division. I would not want to face them in the Pacific Division regularly. So Nashville Predators, really, really good moves from them. And then the next winner was the Vancouver Canucks. Now, obviously, Vancouver, they lost Elias Pettersson and Nikita Zadorov to free agency. However, they signed Jake DeBrusk, 7 years, $5.5 million per season. I think that's really good value. He's a 3-time 25-goal scorer, and his style of play, I think, is going to fit Vancouver really, really well. I think he's going to work really well under Rick Tocchet. Jake Debrusk is someone that Vancouver fans, you're going to love him, by the way. I've been watching him since he was on the Red Deer Rebels, obviously on the Boston Bruins. I love Jake Debrusk. I was really hoping that he was going to sign with the Edmonton Oilers. However, Vancouver picks him up. He's a hometown kid from Edmonton, so he signs in Western Canada. That's a great contract. Maybe towards the end of that contract, it might not look amazing, and Jake Debrusk has had some ups and downs throughout his career. Some injuries, concussion issues. Last year, I think he had a broken hand. However, look for Jake Debrusk to put up some career numbers in Vancouver, playing with some of the skilled players that he'll get to play with, whether that's JT Miller or not Elias Pettersson. Oh my God, what is his name? Pettersson. From the Vancouver Canucks. You know who I'm talking about. I don't know why my brain is scrambling right now. ADHD, I tell you. Next signing from Vancouver was Danton Heinen, 2 years, $2.25 million per season. That's, again, another really good signing from the Vancouver Canucks. He just recently played on the Boston Bruins. That's a good value contract. He provides depth scoring. He can play up and down the lineup if you need him to. If there's an injury in your top six, he jumps up. If you need him on the penalty kill, he can play the penalty kill. And if you need him on the power play, he can play power play time. He's kind of a all situations, all tool player. Not exactly the fastest player, but I do like Danton Heinen. That's a very good value contract. And then, of course, Vinny Desharnais. He left the Edmonton Oilers, signs in Vancouver, 2 years, $2 million per season. A little bit steep in my opinion. However, losing Nikita Zadorov, Vinny Desharnais kind of takes that, that ginormous pest role on the back end. And of course, Vancouver, they re-signed Tyler Myers. And, with Myers and Zadorov and Vinny Desharnais, there's a lot of redundancy in those style of players with just their height, their size, their physical nature. So Zadorov, he ended up leaving. I think Vancouver was better off spending just a little bit of money on Vinny Desharnais instead. They got Desharnais and Tyler Myers locked up for the same amount that Zadorov signed per season in Boston. So that's good value in my opinion. I think the Vancouver Canucks, so far, they've had a pretty good offseason. I think they still have a couple areas that they're hoping to fill or, address. But for Vancouver, I like their offseason. I think they're going to be in a better position heading into next season than they were this season. And if you're the Edmonton Oilers, of course, they've bolstered their offensive group. So if those two teams meet in the playoffs once again, oh boy, it's gonna be fireworks, I tell you what. Now, let's get into the losers of free agent frenzy. Now, the first team, the Los Angeles Kings, they signed Warren Foegele, 3 years, $3.5 million per season. Warren Foegele, he's a good player. He's a play driver, really good 5v5. First time ever scoring 20 goals in a season this past year with the Edmonton Oilers. I think the term and money, a little bit steep. Obviously, there's a reason why Edmonton did not re-sign him. Good for Warren Foegele, but for LA, I just don't really see a huge fit there. You lose Viktor Arvidsson, and then you sign Warren Foegele. I think that's a huge downgrade, and the fact that Foegele almost got just as much money as Viktor Arvidsson, that doesn't look great in my opinion. Arvidsson is clearly the superior player here. And then Joel Edmundson on the back end. He was given 4 years, $3.85 million per season. Joel Edmundson, he has had back issues. He's had injury issues. And his style of play and his age, this signing just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The Los Angeles Kings, of course, also traded Pierre-Luc Dubois before the draft, and they picked up Darcy Kemper from the Washington Capitals. The Los Angeles Kings, I don't know what Rob Blake's doing. I don't know what their management group is doing. But the LA Kings, they looked like they were on the right path during their retool, their little mini rebuild that they did. They've lost 3 years in a row in the playoffs to the Edmonton Oilers, and now it looks like they're kind of crumbling. They're overthinking what they need to address, which players they're trying to acquire, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense here. The LA Kings, their asset management hasn't been great, and I'm very curious to see how much longer Rob Blake stays in that general manager position, because something's got to give in that city, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Kings fans. It probably sucks watching this right now. Next loser of the day was the Boston Bruins. Not necessarily because of the players that they signed. It's the term and money that they gave these players. So Zadorov, 6 years, $5 million per season. Obviously, I like Zadorov a lot. As a also Bruins fan, I'm Oilers fan number 1, Bruins fan number 2. Obviously, he helps the back end a lot. He is a huge upgrade on a Derek Forbort who just signed in Vancouver. I understand the type of player that Boston was going for, and he's going to fit right in with the Bruins. He'll fit right in with their system. But for Nikita Zadorov, 6 years is just a lot of that's a lot of years. It's not going to age well. Zadorov's style of play, I don't like how many years he was given. At least the term, like the value was 5 million per. There was rumors that he was going to get 6 million a year or more. I'm really glad it wasn't that. But Zadorov, that's one of those like middle of the road. I don't know if I agree with that. And then they signed Elias Lindholm, 7 years, $7.75 million per season for Elias Lindholm. Again, that's a contract. I think that's too much money. It's too much term. I don't think Lindholm has really proven that he's like a elite number one center that I think Boston's looking for. I think they're hoping that he will be in that role. We'll see what happens. The Boston Bruins, every time I count them out, every time I think the Boston Bruins are going to take a step back, they just prove me wrong. They end up winning 60 games a year, and I'm just like, okay, well, I don't understand this team, I guess. But I just don't like the years and the money given to these two players specifically. And then, of course, Boston, they lost Jake Debrusk to free agency. So really curious to see how Boston addresses depth scoring here. Like, they have guys that are not getting younger, like Brad Marchand, who's on the decline now. You can tell he's on the decline. So we'll see what goes on with the rest of the Bruins offseason. Next up is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, these players are not bad players. It's the amount of term and money that the Toronto Maple Leafs gave these players. Chris Tanev, 6 years, $4.5 million per season for Chris Tanev. He's 34 years old. He's going to be 40 years old when that contract expires. It's a buyout-proof contract. This is a terrible, terrible contract. Chris Tanev is someone that you acquire for 6 weeks at the trade deadline, not someone that you sign for 6 years. The Toronto Maple Leafs, man, Brad Treliving, he is cooking up a absolute mess of a storm, just a poop sandwich going on with that contract. Obviously, Leafs fans, they're justifying it. They're like, well, after 2 years, Robidaw Island, no big deal. LTIR, they'll use that money to sign other players. It doesn't matter. You still have them on the books. Like, it's still a bad contract. Like, you can acknowledge that you can put them on LTIR maybe in the future, but that doesn't mean that the contract isn't bad right now. So Chris Tanev, terrible contract for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Don't like that one at all. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, obviously, he just won a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers, so they're looking to get that cup. Someone that's won a cup, that experience, come into the locker room, help out the defense, try and get the puck up the ice quicker. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, obviously, he's a puck mover. He's a pretty good skater, too. He can play the power play. 4 years, $3.5 million per season. Again, he's someone that's aging, so the 4 years, it's a lot of term for someone at his age, and the fact that he's probably going to be declining as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs should be getting younger and faster, not older, in my opinion, and then giving term to the older players. It just handcuffs them for the future. Of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs offseason is not done. There's still rumors that they're going to move out one of the core four, most likely Mitch Marner, but we'll end up seeing what goes on there. But those two players, it's the term and money given to them. Obviously, it's not the players themselves. It's just the term and money that makes Toronto a loser on the day. And then another loser was the Ottawa Senators. So it's not necessarily, again, the players that they acquired. It's who they lost and then who they signed. So they ended up trading Jacob Chychrun to the Washington Capitals. They acquired... I forget his name. Dang it, I forget his name. I'm so sorry. I should have had that covered here. From Washington. And then they signed Michael Amadio, 3 years, $2.6 million per season. They signed David Perron, who's on the decline. He showed signs of decline last season. He's 35 or 36 years old, 2 years, $4 million per. The Ottawa Senators, they're a team that should be trying to bolster their lineup around their star players, but they're getting rid of stars like Jacob Chychrun. If you consider him a star, I think that's someone that they should have kept, in my opinion. I'm not sure what's going on with Chychrun. Arizona moved him. Ottawa's moved him. He's only 25. I don't understand what's going on with that player. Maybe it's a locker room issue. I don't know. But the Ottawa Senators, the players that they lose and then the players that they signed, Steve Stamkos, he's not cooking right now. Steve Stamkos is not cooking. If you're a Senators fan, probably a little bit frustrated, but I consider them a loser on the day. Now, the biggest loser, this is the biggest WTF of the entire free agent frenzy, was the Seattle Kraken. Brandon Montour, 7 years, $7.14 million per season. 2 years ago, he had 70-some points with Florida. Listen, Seattle is not Florida. They don't have the offensive firepower that Florida has. Brandon Montour, he is never going to hit that height once again. This season, obviously, he regressed. But Brandon Montour, 7 years, over $7 million a year for Brandon Montour. Seattle, I don't understand this one. Listen, Montour, he's a good defenseman, really good skater, good puck mover, plays power play. I understand the logic here, but to give that term and that dollar figure, I have no idea what Ron Francis is doing. And then Chandler Stephenson, this is the biggest WTF of the entire day. Chandler Stephenson, 7 years, $6.25 million per season. This guy has scored 20 goals once in his entire career. and he puts up the bulk of his points playing next to Mark Stone. Chandler Stephenson, this is going to be like, watch for this to be bought out in a year or two, like max. I'm telling you right now, this contract to Chandler Stephenson, Ron Francis, he's desperate. I think he wants the Seattle Kraken to get back into the playoffs. But for a team that seems to be analytically inclined, I just really don't understand the Chandler Stephenson contract at all. The value does not make sense. The amount of years does not make sense. Chandler Stephenson's deal with Seattle, probably the entire worst, like it's the worst of the day. And then a quick shout out to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They gave Sean Monahan 5 years, $5.5 million per season. Sean Monahan will be reunited with Johnny Gaudreau, and I think they're trying to hope that there's some magic there. But 5 years, $5.5 million per. The value, again, it just doesn't make sense to me. The WTF moments of the day, Seattle and Columbus. Seattle, I expect better from Seattle, but Ron Francis, again, I don't know what the heck that guy's cooking, but that is kind of my overall analysis of Free Agent Frenzy, my winners, my losers, and my WTF. Who were your winners? Who were your losers? Make sure you let me know in the comments section below. As always, if you like these videos and you want to see more, make sure you hit like. If you really liked it, make sure you hit subscribe. And of course, tell all your friends and tell someone that you love them. Fight like a kid. Fight like Ben Stelter Foundation. I always give him a shout out. Sending much love to everyone in the hockey community. We'll see you soon. Take care.